sir.
Good morning.
How are you? I'm good. So this is the order audit HR compliance. Yeah, no, but it's audit HR compliance. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody ready to get started? Sorry, I was a few minutes late. There was some terrible traffic, my goodness. Call to order the Audit Committee meeting, North Broward Hospital District. We could have a roll call, that'd be great.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Here.
Commissioner Yuri?
Here.
Commissioner Wellens?
Here.
Commissioner Gregoire? Here. And Commissioner Klein is not here this time.
Okay. This will open for public comments from our extended audience. Do we have any public comments? Nobody?
No public comments.
Oh, okay, awesome. First order of business, request the approval of our meeting minutes from our October 23rd, 2017 meeting. You should have received a copy of those minutes. I don't recall who, if it's the same committee members that were on the audit committee then, but I know it was myself and Commissioner Rodriguez. I don't recall. Commissioner Wellens, were you on the audit committee at that time?
I have a list of the,
I believe that.
Okay.
believe
I
that
don't-
it was, but
It's
I don't-
in there. I could have pulled the minutes out to confirm, but I just didn't remember. Unless there's any, I had read through them. I think they,
But I don't believe I was at that meeting. I was on the committee, but I don't believe I was at that meeting. I think I did it by phone.
Via phone, yes.
yeah,
I was in
okay, that's right.
California.
Yes, I remember. Yep. All right.
So
So
technically, I guess it was.
you were here, but
Right.
not, you were virtually here. Okay. Sorry?
they call it, it was it wasn't even on the phone.
I know exactly where I was at, in and out, sitting for 2 hours while my wife was
okay.
eating, trying to do this call. I was at the airport and on the way in
I
California.
understand, okay. I mean, I personally had read through them. I felt they had memorialized our deliberations, but unless there's any objection, we can maybe get a motion to,
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented in the
Yeah.
October 23rd meeting.
I second.
right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. As I believe everyone in this committee and hopefully our fellow colleagues on the board who are present but not members of the committee, we are missing 2 members of this committee, which are supposed to be independent outside members, with one of those members needing to be a CPA. This has been an ongoing issue, certainly one that I have been hoping that we can advance, because it is a very, very important part of this committee's work and a requirement that we maintain. So hopefully you've read through some of these resumes. I was informed as I walked in, and I was informed prior to walking in that we were anticipating some other folks throwing their name in the hat. This has obviously been going on for some time. The folks, I believe, I know they were vetted that are in your materials, but also it's my understanding that they've all been contacted relatively recently to confirm that they're still interested. I think it's important that we at least discuss the candidates that have been patient and expressed their interest, and their interest is maintained. So, but at the same time, I think it's also important that we keep ourselves open to some extent to consider other candidates that are apparently expressing some interest now. Thoughts?
Yes. We have a process. We got 4 people. We should discuss these people. Now, in order to, we have to do it one way or the other, okay? According to the process, we either, say you pick somebody from here, and then you find out that for whatever reason you don't pick the second one, you have to give these people the first look at, and then you would have to then open the process again in order to consider any other candidates. You know what I'm saying? We can't just add to the, because this was posted on a certain day, and
Correct me, Mr. Nymore, we posted the position or positions.
Yes.
Was there a deadline for people to respond?
No, there wasn't a deadline for people to respond.
So the process is open
It's open, yes.
and remains open. Okay.
And remains open until I believe this board makes the decision to
Fills
close
the
it.
2 positions. Okay. I'm all for process. I think at this point, this has been going on well over a year now, so I'm going to say that I think process is considerably more on our shoulders at this point. These folks have been patient, and I agree, Commissioner Rodriguez, that giving them full consideration is very important. I don't think in the spirit of trying to do what's best for both this committee and ultimately this organization, keeping people out of a process that remains open is necessarily the right thing. But I will say this: if there's 2 people out of these 4 that rise to the top, I have no problem discussing that. I just also want to be fair to folks that may be throwing their name in the ring, especially considering we've left this process open and didn't have a deadline for responding. So whatever the will of this committee is, I'm fine with. But at a minimum, I think we should at least have some discussion of these folks at a minimum.
I really do. I think that we should have discussions of these folks, and then even if we come up with 1 or 2, or if we come out with 2, we're done. But at least we give these people the consideration.
Totally agree.
Just standing in the food line and wait till you're the last guy there, and then by the time they get there, then 5 or 6 people get in there, and you know what I'm saying? It's kind of. What are you shaking your head?
Chairman, I'm not sure. I'm not sure we can debate and narrow the field in this committee. I think this is a board. If I'm not mistaken, General Counsels would would suggest that any narrowing of the field would have to be done in the board meeting and not in committee. We could talk about the candidates, but I don't think technically we could say 1, 2, 3 need to advance in this committee. I think it's got to be done at board. Unless I've read this incorrectly, the policy. So I just want to be careful that we do what we can do and not overstep our boundary.
Understood. I may have misunderstood my understanding was that we would discuss and recommend certain folks for this position to the board. The board may agree or not agree with our recommendation. leaving that aside, because that's current, policy, I do think that at some future date, having some discussion of best practices in audit committee and the autonomy or certain areas of autonomy that this committee is, at least in my opinion, is a best practice to have. That I think we've got some areas that we should at least discuss, but that's a whole separate issue for a future date. But are we not recommending to the board anything?
Maybe we
That
should
was
ask
my
the general
understanding.
counsel to just kind of review that piece of policy, because this is a tricky little area, and I
Yeah,
just want to make sure we do it correctly so we don't have a problem. 'Cause I think we can, my understanding is I think we can discuss candidates, but we can't narrow the field here. So the question is, it's got to be to the full board at a board meeting if we're going to.
I don't feel the need to discuss people twice. So if everybody's going to go to the board, then everybody's going to go to the board.
All right, let me ask you a question, because my understanding was the same as his. And he was on this audit committee. He was like the designated survivor of the audit committee. When the way I understood it, and this is why somebody asked me one day to get a special board meeting, I says, I believe that the language on the process was that we would review candidates and recommend to the board. And I agree with you on the fact that that's the way I understood it. So if anything changed,
Well, yeah, it's
I
even more. It's how we actually conducted this process the first time when I was a member of the audit committee. That's how we conducted this process before. We just didn't make a decision.
how is it written
So
now?
the procedure that was approved by the board in June of 2017 talks about the information being collected, reviewed by the chief ethics officer, or in this case, compliance and ethics. Step 4 is that the board shall review the applicants and the information provided by the chief ethics officer and determine which applicants, if any, should be invited for an interview with the board at a subsequent meeting. Broward Health staff shall be responsible for scheduling interviews with the applicants. Then step 5, once interviews are conducted, the board shall follow its normal process for voting on an applicant for the position of outside member of the audit committee.
Okay.
Look, I think we have 4 candidates that have been vetted. The ethics has come back and said that,
But my understanding from Mr. Nyamor is that there are 3 other applicants that haven't been vetted yet.
No, we understand that.
Okay.
We have 4 that have.
so maybe we should take this up.
I'm not interested in discussing people twice.
Right,
It's
I
a
agree.
waste of time.
I think it's a waste
So,
of time,
I'm-
and it'd be outside of our policy. I'd rather do it once when we are ready to act, because I think it's important that we
100%.
get this done and get it done, because I think it's a very important position, 2 positions that need to be filled. So let's just, that would be my recommendation. I'm not trying to stop you,
No,
Commissioner, but I just
I'm-
think we do it once and do it right and get it over with.
I'm trying to stop it because I'm a little, I'll be honest, a little disappointed to hear that now. I would rather have just, there's no point in having it on the agenda if that's, but anyway, it is what it is. So unless there's any disagreement, which it doesn't sound like there is, I say we move on to number 2.
Right, I have just one additional item, committee members. Now that there is a lag time between this point and the board, should we do anything with the other 3 candidates or not?
Well,
are
we know
they?
candidates, so you would have, I don't know if that's enough time to vet them.
Yeah.
That's what I was just
Have
gonna
to
say.
give
I
them the
mean,
same process as the other 4.
I don't want to bring anybody to the board either in person or on a piece of paper, okay, to discuss, debate, and otherwise vote on, who hasn't been vetted and is an eligible candidate that meets our criteria, okay? So my hope would be that we could figure out a way to get these folks vetted if they've even applied. I'm not aware of that, but if they've applied, I'd like to figure out a way we can get them vetted, and maybe we can have this as part of our board meeting next week. If we can't, we can't, but I think that would be ideal. But if we can't, I think we at a minimum, we need to discuss these four. These four people have thrown their name in the hat, have gone through, there was two other people, by the way, who have since dropped out, okay? Probably because this, this committee is unfortunately dragging his feet here a little bit, and that's not a criticism of everyone, of anyone here. It's a criticism, I guess, of myself, since I'm the chair. So at the end of the day, we have to advance this issue. It's a critical component of the audit committee and the independence that the audit committee needs to operate with. So,
Hold on a second, I gotta read that.
of course.
There's another thing that was an oversight and I just want to see how the rest of you feel, but there was something that it was an oversight when we did this process. And when it comes to us, we get appointed by the governor depending on the district that we live in Broward County. To me, our community starts north of Griffin Road, south of the county line. On the east, we got the Chucks, and on the west, we got the Alligators. And that's where I believe that we should be looking at. Personally, that's gonna be a criteria for me to look at, because community means the boundaries that we serve. I know that we probably serve 15% from Palm Beach and maybe whatever from south, or those things that we can control on. But just for community spirit and trying to get folks from the community, I would take preference over those. So I like to know, unless it's somebody exceptional, but I want to make sure that at least one of these people is from the district, the North Broward Hospital District, which is what we represent.
Right. I understand what you're saying, and I think your point's well taken. I will say just this is my own personal perspective. First and foremost, I want the two best people we can find, okay? One of them being a CPA. If two of them were CPAs, that'd be even better. That would have been my preference. I just felt it was a bit of a strict requirement to have. So we went with at least one had to be. That being said, this role is a very different role than what Governor Scott appoints in terms of a board member here. This is an independent, outside set of eyes. While I would never have as a requirement that the person be a resident of the North Broward Hospital District, I certainly also wouldn't have the requirement that the person be a non-resident of the North Broward Hospital District. But their independence, in my opinion, is potentially enhanced by the fact that they're not a resident of the North Broward Hospital District. So I would not view that as a restriction. Whether that's anyone else's personal preference, that's fine. You guys and gals vote how you choose. But I just wanted to make the point that this is a very different role, and the independence with which these folks need to function, I don't think where you live is a particularly important criteria, but if it was a criteria, I think that independence is enhanced by being outside the district personally, but anyway.
I just want to correlate the word community to how I perceive our community to be. I know that if we could, I mean, I know there's other districts that are, crossing boundaries back and forth. We'd rather stay within, the charter and do the right thing, but, that's gonna be something that I wanna make sure that they qualify, and if you can get 2 CPA, fine, but to build goodwill within the community, I think it's important that when we say the community, in my view, is the community that we provide service to. But that's okay.
No, I think, look, everybody's going to vote how they want to vote.
No,
That would be my expectation. I just wanted to make the point that this is a very different role in my eyes. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm
I
right.
agree with you, Chris. This is a commissioner.
Chris is fine.
Chris is fine. I do believe that we're looking for a specific skill set here. We're looking for somebody willing to volunteer. They're going to have to give up any opportunities to, their firms are going to have to recuse themselves from participating with the Broward Health or North Broward Hospital District. So there are some challenges in taking this role as a volunteer, but I think we want the right 2 individuals. If they come from the community defined by our boundaries, great. I think having a skill set and the independence is way more important, and I agree with you that we want somebody who's going to step in and serve a role that's completely independent and serve it for a period of time. So I think that should be the #1 driving force. If they happen to live in the district, great. To me, I think it's less of an issue. I think it's more important to have the right people and qualified. So maybe you and I agree on that.
And it may, who knows how it shakes out, but.
Right, and I think the board will
everybody
take those candidates up and we'll make a decision.
100%.
And hopefully they're from the district and we'll go from there. It doesn't, that's irrelevant to me though.
Okay. Any objection to moving on to #2 then? No?
No.
Okay.
So question.
Mr. Crook, oh, sorry. Go
So
ahead.
the question is, because I know that I was in the same vein with you regarding the process. Maybe it was something that was done before and then forgot to change it, whatever the deal is. But, and I think that somebody asked me, and I said that he needs to go to the committee and to check with you. So now, if we need to do this, why don't we just vet these other 3 people, find out where they are, send all the resumes to everybody, and then if we have to call for a special meeting, we'll do it that way. If that's it, just so we get an idea of where we're going, so we don't come back here, down the road, and then we're still trying to figure out how we're gonna do it.
Right.
So I think that we should,
I think it'd be ideal if we had the most robust group of folks to choose from. And if it's just these 4, it's just these 4. I don't think it's the end of the world, but I think it would be ideal to have a more robust group if we have other people applying. So my hope would be that we can vet these folks as quickly as possible, but as thoroughly and meeting our requirements, and we only discuss and evaluate people who have met all of those requirements. I do not want to discuss anybody that hasn't.
no, fine. But
I mean-
the question is, counsel, how long does it take to do all this background check and
I don't know, that was done by compliance and ethics.
Mr. Hartfield, the compliance
So,
are?
it would depend on how quickly we get the documents. So I was just informed at 8 o'clock last night about these 3 additional candidates. So we would need to see what their conflict of interest contained, what their financial ownership disclosure forms contained, how much of that we have to go through, and then how quickly we can get into contact with the candidates to fill in any blanks or questions we may have with the information that we're provided.
All right, well, if I could just request you and your team, staff, and whoever, just put a full court press on this. I understand that
Absolutely.
some of it is contingent on the swiftness with which these candidates reply, but
Right.
if you can put a full court press on it, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
And by the way, you did a very good job on with the orientation yesterday.
Okay, good.
It was a great job.
Okay, thank you.
I had a good time with you guys.
So I guess we've got a meeting scheduled for next week.
Next Wednesday.
Correct. So I'd hate the thought to come in next Wednesday and not know if we've got 3 more candidates to discuss or not.
Well, no, we'll know because we're going to only discuss people who.
No, I understand.
whose
So
resumes have been.
If they're not
circulated.
Okay, so if they're not prepared and we haven't finished the background check, we haven't cleared their ethics, and they haven't submitted all their forms, are we going to go? We don't want to make a decision on 4 if we have 7. Maybe we ought to make a bigger decision and say, okay, we're gonna vet these 3, schedule this as an agenda item for April, and close the process so that we don't have 3 more show up a week before the
Right.
April meeting and it drags to May.
Understood.
We need these people in place for the audit, which is going to start, so we would
Right.
like them in place maybe a month or 2 before technically the year ends, so that they can be involved in the audit going forward. So maybe we ought to.
Well, if Chair Rodriguez was kind enough to offer a special board meeting.
No,
which he did.
this is exactly,
No, I'm saying,
you know,
so I wanted to make sure we didn't keep kicking this can
I
down
agree.
the road. So if you're willing to call a special board meeting, in the event we can't have all of these folks vetted to be able to address all of them at one time, then I think that's the best option.
I don't have a problem with it. Like I said to you, I was in the same vein with you, thinking that was a process, that was somebody approached me and I said, look, I think this gotta go to committee. And that's why I didn't call a special board meeting.
I think we've
I think
been,
if this goes a week or 2 longer than the board meeting next week, that's fine.
I'm fine.
If we can make a decision by the middle of April, in terms of if we want to interview any candidates, because obviously these are all CPAs, they may be tied up till the 15th, but if we can interview them, we have a special board meeting in the beginning of April, we know that we have these 7, we're not going to accept any more because we're not going to have time. We need to vet these 3, vet all 7, make a decision, and decide if we move forward. I think that's fine. I don't want this to drag into May because it's going to be.
No, then
but,
you have a problem.
No, let's just commit to
Okay.
get it done. Okay, perfect.
No, you can count on that. I can
Okay.
call
Okay.
for a special board meeting.
Okay. Mr. Crooks.
Commissioner Yuri, quick
Yeah.
question. Should we keep the process open or close it?
I mean, at this point, I would say, my assessment would be, let's close it so we don't have, huh?
At the board meeting.
Yep, next week. We recommend to close it at the board meeting. That's the
So it
recommendation
stays
of the committee.
open,
Okay.
Lynn, until that point?
Okay.
Do we need a
We'll leave it.
motion to,
You can make a motion to recommend.
okay, I'll make a motion to recommend that we close the search process for an independent auditor, and we recommend that to the board, for the board meeting next week, and we'll close it as of the board meeting next week, if approved.
I like to add to go into a consent agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think anything that comes out of the committee would go on the consent agenda, but could be pulled, should somebody.
I have no problem with that.
I would just slightly correct if you're okay with my correction.
Yeah, sure.
It's not an independent audit committee member.
That's right, man, an independent audit committee member, correct. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, fine. So you got a motion, I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, there we go. Boy, that was easy, right?
I think we're getting close. Get this done.
No one said that was gonna be easy.
It's another day. Mr. Crooks.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Management. I would like to first just update on our resource efforts. We have hired a admin assistant, Maria Molina Recall. Is there any assistant for?
Hello.
And also we have promoted one of our rising star in our department to a senior auditor, so we are doing well in moving our resources along. And I'm required to let the committee know that whatever we do in our resource, that's who our department reports to. So from an audit, internal audit activity, last year we have completed 26 audits, some of which identified that there were improvements needed, and I congratulate management, the management team at Broward, the new management team, that they actually implement most of the finding, the risk. They rectify them and put controls in place. So I'm very pleased with their process, the process that's going with the new management team. And I can honestly say that I've had a great relationship working with them to mitigate those risks. Our current audit that we're working on, and I provide you with a list of 4 audits that we're working on and the information that was given on it. So we have done the surgical equipment audit, and we have that's completed. And if you look at the far end management action, they have implemented a great number of controls in place to mitigate those risks. What we found, we have found improvements relating to tracking of the surgical equipment maintenance records and services. And so, but management has implemented controls that would mitigate those risks, and we're proud of that. The on-call, where it's still in progress, we're in a report in progress. That means we're just writing the report fully. And again, we've had several conversations with management, and they have, again, implemented a lot of stuff in place, a lot of controls that would mitigate those risks, what we found in the on-call. The contract process is in progress as well, and it's we have seen where the new director and the CFO has totally revamped the system and put in some control that would help run the process smoother and will actually mitigate any risks that arise from our review. And the last one is that we're working on, and it's completed, was a review from several audits that we have done. We went back and we did a follow-up review, and that one has several issues that we have shown, and I list them here. There were laxity in the director of design fiduciary responsibility to Broward Health, and I'm proud that there were action taken from management to start the process in mitigating risk and actually making the process better. So we're pleased about all the issues that we've fleshed this out with management. We've talked to them, internal audit, and we feel very comfortable that they're making the right stride in improving the process. So I'll entertain any questions that you have.
Where are you with your staffing? I know you introduced, and I apologize, I don't remember her name, but where are you with staffing? Because I know you and I have spoken, there was several open positions.
We have, we just hired our promoted one gentleman up from, from staff auditor to senior auditor, and we're now looking for a staff auditor, and we just hired our assistant. And for IT auditor, we're looking at someone to complete the process on that.
Okay, but you have, if I remember correctly, a total of 8 FTEs.
Right.
And how many do you have
So,
currently filled?
And now we have 6 FTEs.
Okay, so we've obviously got a lot going on between now and, let's just call it the end of the year.
Right.
Because we've got to,
So we have had a very aggressive audit plan that we put in place, and we also work in tandem with management to do different reviews. And so it's a myriad of things that we're doing. One, we have our audit plan, which is a list of audits that we have to do. And then we have management, we help management facilitate reviews and investigation and so forth. So it's a list, it's a laundry list of things we have to do. And I feel comfortable if I fill that position soon, then we can able to accomplish all those.
Right, well, that's where my concern's going. So obviously, I hope you can fill the position, but I want to understand what the plan is in the event you don't, and more importantly, I really don't want you to just fill the position. I want you to get, obviously, the best person you can identify, but especially on the IT side, at a minimum, I would suspect that there's outside services that could be utilized in the event you needed them. I know you and I had spoken at one point some time ago about purchasing some audit software, which I am familiar with. I mean, not necessarily that specific one, but I am very familiar with the ones that exist. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we're not just sitting there waiting for somebody to present themselves to fill a role. I want to make sure that we've got, at a minimum, all of our, you know, activities being conducted. And if that means additional resources, I want to know, because I don't want this to go to the end and it's a mad scramble and so on, and then things get sloppy, right? That's what I don't want. And and I want you to also know I have spoken as well with our auditing firm, and in addition to filling the two, which you've heard a particularly lengthy discussion about the fact that we can't do anything right now, but filling these two roles is a very important thing that our outside auditors are looking at too. So we can't have things going to the end and not fulfill all of those responsibilities or hastily do them. Right?
You're absolutely right, Commissioner. We're very diligent in our work, and so we would not rather not do it than to do it halfway, so to speak. We are in the process of looking at the software that can help us to flesh out the IT audits, and so we're in the process of getting the codes and the best use of that software. With regard to hiring people, we're aggressively working with HR department to get the right people in so we can help accomplish our plan.
Right. Well, I understand your point of you'd rather not do it than do it halfway. The problem is not doing it and doing it in halfway. Neither of those are options.
Right.
The only option is to do it right and to do all of the things right. So, as I had mentioned to you, you know, if you were to identify this software, whether it, I mean, look, you're the one that's got to make a decision on whether or not it satisfies what your need is. But based on what you had discussed with me, it sounds like that would be the equivalent roughly of one FTE, right? So it may be the right thing to do, it may not be the right thing to do, but I'm growing concerned that we're several months further along with lots of things that need to get done. And I'm growing concerned that they're not going to be done either in time or thoroughly. That's what I'm concerned about.
Let me assure you that it's no much of a concern. We are on it. Even if we get a software, we're going to require someone to man that software to actually pull information and read information, interpret it, and to make a logical decision of what the software is telling us. Software is as good as the person who's working it, so we still would need someone or some auditor within our department to actually interpret the data and analyze it and to make use of it in terms of our audit. We are looking at software, but that's right. And so we will definitely complete all our tasks. Last year we had less people in our department and we completed all our audit plan. So I don't foresee any issue with this year not completing our plan with more people, additional bodies that we have now. So I feel that very comfortable that we can accomplish this and provide all the work.
All right. Well, then are you saying you need to reassess whether or not you need 8 people? I'm a little confused. I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm just saying, the reality is this is a major area, okay, of checks and balances, okay? And I appreciate your assurance, but I remain concerned, okay? Not because, it's simply because it's not done and it's not where it needs to be, and until it is, that's just, I'm, I guess, a worrywart in that respect. It's not a lack of confidence, it's not, there's not a particular concern I have, it's just, you know, resources are, from what you've shared with me in the past, resources were tight in your department, and I'm just saying, let's be mindful of what other options there are so that we don't get to, you know, the goal line here and we don't end up having the resources to get it in the end zone, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, very
So
well taken.
that's-
Your point well taken, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Nair, good morning. A question for you. I know that we've made a lot of strides regarding contracts and procurement and a lot of that stuff, and you know, from before. How do you work with the procurement process to obtain something from, I guess, I don't know if it's a new company or something. Is that time consuming, or is that something that?
So how do I work with the procurement department to determine our audit?
Well, no, if you want to buy a new bicycle, okay?
Okay, so it's a purchase.
Just simple.
Yeah. So
To deliver your stuff. Bless you. Does it take you 7 months to get it?
at the time
The
initially,
bureaucracy, well, I
Yeah.
know that our leadership team has really improved a lot of the stuff, but,
Right.
you know, I just want to.
So there's a process in place where, depending on the amount, that you have to go through this process and bid. You got to put it out to bid and have more than three or more people to bid on it. So it will be had good visibility of what you're buying to the public and to Broad Health. But it's a process that we have to go through to get it, and it's something that we're first we have to determine what we need in terms of equipment or the software. And then
I'm going to stop you just for a second because
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to get confused here. I understand your question, Commissioner Rodriguez, but the internal audit role is a different function. What he's describing is what the operational management team has in terms of a process for procuring new equipment. His role, though, is to audit whether or not we actually follow our process. Are we, in an independent way, confirming that all of the things that management says that they're doing and the procedures and processes that are in place, they're actually following. So his department isn't part of the ordering process.
No, we're not part of it. Yes, we're not part of the ordering of the process, but when we're ordering, we have to go through the process in order to do it. So if, for example, to take your point on the software that we're looking at, if we're going to order it, we have to go through the procurement process to order that as any other department. So, whatever that is, we have to go through that process to obtain the bid.
Right.
First of all, get our.
But your team and your job is to make sure that whatever process we say we're going to follow as a
Yeah. So we
company,
audit to the.
we actually follow it.
Yes, absolutely. So we audit to the policy and procedure and to regulations and to a myriad of criteria, whether it's be legal precedent or something set by the state, regulation by the state, or Broad Health policy and procedure. So, and we compare those criteria to what they're doing now and determine the gap, if there's any gap. And then that's why we do our audit in a nutshell. We take whatever is prescribed by Broad Health and also the state and also regulations, and then determine if that's what the process in place is what we're doing, and whether there's a gap between the two.
I know what your job is, but I just question this because you have to go along and order the new software,
Yeah,
okay? And so that's what the question was.
Right.
If you order software, is it going to hold you back 3 months because of the procurement process, okay?
right.
that's something that has to be considered.
Yeah, well, yeah, if it's, I just have to go through the procurement process, whatever that is.
I got it.
Whatever it takes.
I wasn't following where you were going with that, so my apologies.
That's why I made it clear. All right, I got it.
Anyone, anything else?
Any other questions?
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, unless there's any other discussion for this committee, I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Thanks, folks.